Content warning. The following will contain imagery and discussion on drug use, overdose, death, mental illness, and other potentially triggering subject matter. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. The views and opinions discussed on this panel do not necessarily reflect those of Recovery Unplugged.
Welcome, everybody, to our latest and greatest version of Talksicology, where we talk about addiction and we talk about those that are affected by addiction. So today we have Steven with Legends Life and Wellness and also a trainer. And we have Trey, also of Legends Life and Wellness with us. Welcome, guys.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks for having us, man.
No problem. We also have joining us Joseph Guerrero. Joseph, thank you.
Hey.
So right around the corner from us right now is the New Year's. And, growing up for me, one of the biggest thing that that we always did and was, I even remember in school being asked, like, what's your New Year's resolution? And, we would make these promises. This is what I'm going to do next year. This is what I'm going to do coming up. This is going to be me, the new me, the new year, new you. And we always use like that point, that pivot of the new year to make a change, to make a decision, right? It's a decision point in our life where we pivot and we say, all right, I've been going down this road, but right on January 1st of next year, something magical is going to happen. I'm going to make a turn in my life. The power and the limitations of resolutions are both there, right? Because it gives you an opportunity to start something. It gives you a definitive point in the sand to say, after I hit that point, after that, everything is going to be different. But it also means that every point up to that point, every moment up to that point, I was living, or we'd be living, or we'd still be eating whatever we wanted to eat up to that point. So what I wanted to do is to talk about today the power and the limitations of resolutions, how they can be limiting, how they can hold us back, and how they can spring us forward. And one of the things I wanted to do is start out and ask, why do we make these resolutions? And what is the value of a fresh start? And the unique benefits of resolutions for people battling substance abuse and those who are in recovery. Steven, tell us why we make resolutions.
I think looking back, I can't actually remember if my family did resolutions or anytime I ever have. But I think, I don't know. I think just it's a thing that a lot of people do. And so when you look out, whether it's on social media or your friends and family, and you hear people are making resolutions, you get hyped and you want to do the same thing, right? And who doesn't it sounds good. I want to do these things. I want to change. I want to start working out or eating better, or I want to get sober. Even just behavioral things. I want to stop reacting. I think it is alluring to set this thing I do want to be different and I do want to make these changes. Excuse me, the computer's going off. But I think you said, there's limitations there. We set ourselves up to we want to make all these changes, and then when we don't, it's just kind of a defeating feeling. But looking as to why, I think it's because we see a lot of other people doing it, and maybe they did, if we look back this last January, maybe we can look back on some friends who I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and they've continued it. And so there is potentially we can look to others almost looking in 12-step recovery, oh, they did well with their lives and they're doing a lot better. So maybe I should try the same thing this year. Yeah, as for why people do it, I just think it's we see a lot of others doing it, and so in a healthy fashion at first, it helps us want to make those changes too.
Trey, why do you feel we make these resolutions?
Man, I'll preface this by saying, before I got sober, I never made any resolutions. I never had any goals. There are a lot of things I wanted to be, right? But I never had any plan of action or any action whatsoever. For me today, I think recovery is kind of, characterized with personal growth. It's like we get sober, we start to experience, these things. We start to experience life, and in a way that we've never experienced it before. And I don't know, for me, there. It's not to say that like I'm in a bad place and I don't like my current circumstances, but there are things that I wanna do with my life. There are certain characteristics about myself that I feel like could use some improvement, and I feel ultimately like that's why it's like I want to be a better person. I want to be able to show up for my family, and I want to ultimately just be able to serve serve society and serve others better. So.
Well, I think you guys both brought up really cool points, like tying it to like people's recovery, right? I see a lot of people who come in and they're like, they're in treatment for a week or two and they're like, all right, I got to go. I got to make money. I got to get a girlfriend. I got to get back in school. I ain't got time for this no more. And then usually like those ambitious people who want to do it all, right? I see them back in a couple months or a couple weeks, right? But like what you were talking about, Trey, made me think of this. It's like when I came into the rooms, like when I was really ready, all I wanted to do was get sober. There was no other goal in my brain. Like it was like, I'll be homeless and sober. Like I just need to get sober. Right. But then, right, as we spent some time in the rooms, Steven, you with 2 years and Trey with 6 years, right? Like first sober was good enough. And then after a while, like that's not good enough anymore. Right. That's still like a huge cornerstone to who we are. Right. But we want to grow as people, grow financially, grow big muscles, grow, shrink our bellies, whatever it may be, right? But so do you guys think that there's a risk there? Like, for someone who's in early recovery to set too much?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a huge piece. Like, I have that same experience, like wanting all these things or wanting to be or do all these things because, like, I was used to, I'd been a heroin addict for almost a decade, right? And I think that is where like a lot of people like maybe slip up or fail at it, like with resolutions or recovery or anything. Like we make these resolutions and resolves. So like I'm gonna do this and this and this and this. And it's like we overwhelm ourselves with all of these things that we're going to change and we want to change and like it's healthy, but like we fail at one, we fail at the other, and then we just like get completely discontented with the whole thing. Like, and so my approach to a lot of things, like Trey can say the same, like when trying to help people like either in recovery or fitness or whatever, like it's just one thing at a time, like one main goal, and then you just move forward from there. Because like just like you said, like when I got to the room, I was like, I just want to be sober. And like it took me a few years before I was like, okay, I want some other things in my life now, right?
So how do you guys think, what are the best steps to maintaining these resolutions that we make?
How do you do it the right way?
I don't know if there's any like right or wrong way. Like I've it's kind of been a process for me, but like what I've learned so far is when I have like, all right, let's just say I want to make 6 figures next year, right? Like that's like those are the kinds of goals that I used to make, and they always seem just so unattainable that like, come February, I'm just like, whatever, maybe that'll happen, maybe it won't. But
I still got 99,000 to go.
But breaking it down into like, okay, well, how much is that a month? How much is that a week? And it's like I have these more attainable goals. So like, and the same was working out. In my fitness journey, started off as like, I want to get big, I want to get swole, but I didn't start actually like getting results until it became about just showing up in the gym every day, just showing up for myself. And I guess ultimately what I'm trying to say is when it starts becoming about this end result and more about right now, it's like I'm more open to the journey and more open to like it's become more about showing up for Trey and not trying to look a certain way or be a certain way. Like that whole idea of being big is so far out there now. Like now it's become about my diet, taking care of my body, and helping other people to achieve like the same results. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Well,
that makes perfect sense.
so we've talked a couple of times about, I mean, today's topic isn't fitness, right? But so often, right, resolutions are about something physical, right? And you know, very often, especially guys in early recovery, they want to get into the gym, they want to get big, right? Why do y'all think that is?
I'd say like in my own personal experience, like a huge just like lack of confidence and self-esteem. You know, like for the longest time, especially in early recovery, I would just be like, man, I'm just like a junkie. Like I had nothing going. You know, I didn't finish college. Just worked labor my whole life, and so like for me, you know, like, and I won't lie, I understand how it is for a lot of people, like men and women at first, like, you know, making resolutions that are like physique bound or like appealing because like we do want something and that stuff does make us feel better. But like Trey said, like I did eventually fall into like, man, this is more just about like I feel proud about the hard work that I've done. And looking back, I'd be like, oh, all that labor work really lent itself, that work ethic lends itself to like my wellness journey as a whole. So I was able to kind of like come into like a new mindset, but like early on, it's just like I did want to feel good about myself because I had nothing to feel good about really. Like I was glad that I was sober, but you know I had the wreckage of our past and all that. I had a lot of stuff to fix, and I had a lot of stuff to catch up on. So I think when you can like change your perspective and your intentions on everything, you do see different results and you do feel differently about it. But yeah, I'd say the first biggest thing is just like that self-esteem and that self-worth. And it did eventually become less about what everyone else thought and like more about how I felt and like how empowered I felt doing this for myself. So yeah, I'll give it to Trey now too.
Well, yeah, no, I think that it was a huge part in my early recovery and still today, honestly, because it's like I've had times throughout my sobriety where like I have all those things and I get all those things and I have that salary that I want and I'm so I'm miserable, you know. So like I'm always an advocate for, you know, getting right internally, making sure that's right. And I think that's a big reason why like I experienced it a lot in sober living, like people going to the gym every day, skipping meetings, not really focusing on a recovery, just focusing on getting money, getting swole, all that stuff. And those guys relapse pretty quick, and it's because like from my own experience, like I'm just operating off of my own ego, right? Like I'm not really well internally, and I'm seeking like outside validation. So like I'm always going to advocate for like where are you at internally, you know, because I can be swole, I can be all those things, but like if I'm not okay internally, if I'm not right with myself, like does any of that really matter? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So right. So we have these goals that we place, right? And we make them at the beginning of the year. And from what I'm hearing from you guys is that, you know, making sure that, you know, you make the goals about, you know, about not necessarily the end result, but making sure that you maintain the idealism or the identity of the goal, right? So it's not about getting swole as it is as much about making sure that you show up every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not about being a sober person than it is, you know, every day making sober decisions, making decisions that keep you sober.
Well,
Which
it's the journey, right? It's
it's
about the
yeah,
journey, not the destination,
Yeah.
right?
right.
Like
So
I think about like with you know, people who have who are really great speakers at meetings, you know, like that do great, you know, they can tell their story really, really well, right? Like they didn't go through like the 10 years or whatever of their recovery thinking like I'm gonna have a great speaker meeting story in a couple years, right? They just did the right thing every day, and that led to a great story, right?
No,
right.
exactly.
Okay, I cut you off.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Uh, what happens, you know, you had mentioned like you know, you had made a big goal, and at the February you realized that you were kind of off the mark, and you weren't going to make that goal. What do you do then? Like, what do you do when like February gets here and you wanted to lose, you want to lose 100 pounds this year, right? And or you wanted to make sure that you made this much money, or let's make it more recovery related. You did not want to go to any bars or find yourself in any bars or in any situation that endangered your sobriety. And here you are, like January 28th, and you're not going to make enough money to hit your money goal. You've only lost 2 pounds, and your goal is like 7 pounds a month. Or you're sitting there at a bar in front of a glass of drink, and you're like, oh, what do I do?
Of drink.
Right? Like, well, like let's say, all right,
it's a glass of whiskey. It's a glass of whiskey,
right?
Jameson.
and what do you do? What do you do when you realize that you didn't hit the smaller goal? What do you do, Steven?
For me, I guess it's definitely like easier said than done. But you just like, if you mess up, whether it's your recovery or like your weight loss or money, like you just get back up and try it again. Like I know that's so much easier said than done, but I kind of relate it to like, man, I went to like 12 or 13 detoxes and like a 10th treatment center this last time. Between 2014 to 2020. And I wasn't thinking it consciously at the time. Like, man, I'm just not going to quit. But looking back, I was like, man, at least I just kept going, because I knew like eventually like I would learn more each time. Like my runs would get shorter and my sobriety time would get longer over the course of years. And like Trey can attest to that. I met Trey in treatment in 2014, and he's like he was my recovery. This is before recovery coaches and like we're a big, or PRSs were a big thing, right? Like he was that for me. He's my friend, but like he showed me the steps to getting and staying sober. And like, obviously I didn't listen to all of them at first, but I remembered him as I kept going back to treatment, and as like Trey kept showing up as like a brother and then a friend in recovery. But like we were gonna fail. Like I didn't get my fitness and health down the first few times I did it. I didn't get my recovery down the first few times I tried, or first 8 times I tried. But I don't know. Like you just hopefully we'll get into a point where you're like, well, I'll try again, and like looking back, like what didn't work, or I'll cut that out. What did work? Well, let me keep doing that. Whether it's like how you were making money, the type of recovery you were doing, whether it's 12-step or anything else, and your fitness. Like if a program didn't work, just try something else. Like I think just continuing to try is what like yields those results we want.
Well, but clearly, like you guys are men in recovery who have been able to achieve some pretty big goals, right? Multiple years of sobriety, like that's huge. That's a massive thing, right? There's millions of Americans who are dying to figure out how to do that, right? Starting your own businesses, Steven, multiple businesses, right? Like owning a company, like those are big goals, right? So now you guys, so like how did y'all chop that stuff up, right? Because I'm sure you chopped it up into smaller things to be able to hit that big goal, right? So like what Kay was talking about, right? Like if it's a big goal, if I want to make X amount of money or lose 100 pounds, right? I think y'all probably chopped it up into small tasks, right? Like we got to get a name, we got to get an LLC, we got to, whatever. So like, what does that process look like? Like not for starting a business, but like a process of taking that big goal and making it something you can handle.
I mean, it's funny the way our business started, because I started it backwards, right? I just knew that like if we got the name and filed it, I'd have to take action, right? So and I think that we've encountered some things that don't work, and the way that the way that I like to approach it is like, I try to find some gratitude in when we hit a wall, you know what I'm saying? Like we learn what doesn't work, and that's just as useful information as figuring out what does work, So yeah, I mean, when that stuff comes up, you just have to admit this isn't working. That's okay. Let's try this thing, right? And I don't know. I in more simple terms, man, like it's good for me to have like a definite, precise goal, right, for the future. But when I have like tunnel vision for that thing, it's like I'm missing out on. You said the journey earlier, and it really resonated with me. I'm missing out on all these other like possible opportunities that could be cropping up, and I'm missing them because I'm so hyper focused on just this one thing, right? My goal a couple of years ago was to become financially independent, and having an open mind going into that led me down so many roads. I started reading books. Like my initial thought of being financially independent was I got to make more money, but it led me down a road of, paying off debt, not taking on more debt, learning how to manage the money that I do have. And what I found is that I can create wealth on a very low, on a low salary, and most people don't know that you can do that. And it's really just about learning how to manage the money that you have, and not spending money on, stupid stuff all the time, like clothes that I really can't afford, cars that I really can't afford. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing is like, yeah, having that open mind and being willing to change my trajectory if needed.
That was such a cool example, just, because like what you said about like, the goal is to, be financially independent, but that doesn't just mean one thing, right? Like, I heard you talk about impulse control. I heard you talk about planning, right? I heard you talk about self-esteem, right? Because like usually when you want to get like a real nice car and a bunch of new clothes, it's because like I'm not feeling so good, right? And I gotta do some retail therapy on Amazon impulsively, right? So I heard like all these little values and like characteristics that people don't think of. Like what you're saying is like those help you towards that big goal, which I thought that was really cool, because like as you're going towards the goal, you're growing in all these areas, like just as a byproduct, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man, it's been a good year so far. What would you say, like, if you were to talk to someone right now who's, who's fresh in their recovery, or who's looking to make some of these goals for next year, what would you say, like, what are your top 3 goals that you think would be attainable and effective for someone fresh in recovery, Stephen?
I would say to like keep your, I mean, you kind of spoke on it, like instead of making like a resolution, and Trey touched on it too, like just set a goal and don't set something huge. Don't set like, I'm going to lose 20 pounds in 30 days because it's not healthy and it's very hard, right? Like I'm going to lose 5 pounds.
And it'll make you cranky. It'll make you very, very cranky.
No, yeah, lack of food, like extreme lack of food is not good for you, your mood, anything. But set something small, like I'm gonna lose 5 pounds in 45 days. Or if you want to do something for your recovery, I think the whole 90-90 thing is great. I've actually, I'll be transparent, I didn't make my 90-90, but I think it is a good goal because it's just one a day, And as far as like how am I going to make these changes, a goal like, well, I'm just going to take some action every day, whether it's like, if it's for my wellness, like I'll go on a walk, or I'll go to the gym and like walk on the treadmill, just so I show up and like get into the rhythm of doing that. For my recovery, like I'm going to go to a meeting, or I'm going to talk to somebody. I'm going to read some recovery focused literature. And like, I'm big on just small goals, like, because if we overwhelm ourselves, like we don't want to do it. It seems we do like, our fitness and our school and our nutrition and our recovery, and and our family, and like again, it's so much, and we like even now, like almost 2 years sober, I'm like that's a lot.
Look, at 13 years sober, I can still turn anything into an addiction. You know what I mean? Whatever it is.
And I think like just small doses of everything are like what's going to be best, because like I'm not here to be perfect at anything. Like I think just being consistent across the board, and that doesn't mean like I need to every day wake up like, you know, I would say always make your recovery the most important thing. That because I've done the opposite, and I've made fitness or a girlfriend or like my son more important, you know, before, and I didn't keep it. So this last time I was like, I make my recovery my most important thing, like whether it's prayer and meditation or something 12-step focus for me, that's like a daily thing. The other stuff like fitness, nutrition, family, like that's just takes up the, you know, my week, but it's not like I'm like overdoing it for myself mentally, because then I'll just get burnt out, inevitably fail in one area, which leads to like a drop for me in self-esteem, and I'm like, well, I can't do any of this.
Yeah, if I messed up a little bit.
Yeah, why try with everything else, right? So I would say just super small goals at first, and like as you get more confident and consistent, like then build upon your goals from there. But I would say the first 3 things, like just keep it simple, and then just some action every day for something.
I used to tell sponsees all the time, no 0 days, right? So like if you're wanting to work on your fitness, do 1 push-up. Like at least you did the one, you know, it's 11:55, you're about to go to bed and you're like, oh man, I didn't do anything for my physical health today. 1 push-up, bro. Like just as long as it's not a 0, you know?
No, that's awesome actually.
What about you, Trey? What would be 3 things that you would give to someone early in recovery?
Like three things to do.
3 bits of sage, like bomb, you know, guru advice for the person new in recovery.
Like for instance, Crystal Renee says her goals are 1, be more proactive, 2, spend an hour each week building my website, and 3, venture out to new meetings. That's great. Like those are like, I think those are 3 things that are like simple and easy to do. But if you were to give somebody recovery related goals, what would they be?
Can I hold on? I want to pick on Crystal real quick, like if she was a client, not in a mean way. So that first and third goal, very ambiguous, right? Like how do you know when you've achieved being more proactive, right? The second goal is great, right? I can set a timer and know that I spent an hour a week on my goal, right? So like for number 3, right, venture out to new meetings. Like I would always encourage someone to like, okay, 1 new meeting a month, 1 new meeting a week, like set something so that it's attainable. Like Stephen was just talking about, right? Small things, something attainable, but then like, you know, you did it, right? You give yourself a little pat on the back. Like I hit the goal for the week, you know, or the day or whatever it may be. So Crystal, I would challenge you to dial those 2 in a little bit, but thank you very much for sharing your goals with us tonight and contributing to the conversation.
Yeah.
Sorry, Trey.
I would say that brings up a good point though. And that's why I feel so, I mean, it was my own experience, and I always give that advice. Focus on yourself, focus on doing the work that you need to do within AA or whatever path you've chosen. Because for me, it was important to understand what proactive means to Trey. It's important to understand what success means to Trey. You know, because for a long time I'm looking outside of myself, and I'm looking at his idea of success, and ultimately, like, I'm not really ever sensing success for myself because I don't even know what that is, right? So I'd say the most important thing is do internal work, focus on yourself, and whatever path it is that you choose, like get thoroughly involved in that. And my own experience with that is when I'm doing that, everything else just starts to fall into place. My first 3-4 years of recovery was just being thoroughly involved in AA, service and all that stuff. And you know, a lot of the things that happened to me within those 4 years were not of my own doing. You know, they just happened because I just was doing the next right thing to the best of my ability. So that's it.
That's that's like one of those, like, when you asked for some sage, that was sage. That definitely was there. So what happens when you fall along the way? And I know we talked about what happens when you don't meet the goal, but what happens when you actually do something that makes you go the other direction? You've gained weight instead of lost it. You've actively relapsed, or you spent way more money than you actually had and caused yourself to go in more debt. And I know the simple answer, right, is to say, well, just kind of never give up, go ahead and start over again. But that's harder, right? That's really hard. But what is the anchor that someone can grab onto during that storm of issues that comes up after moving backwards in their goals? Like somebody comes to you and they've gone backwards in with their fitness goals, or Joseph, they've gone in a wrong direction for their addiction. What is the anchor that you guys give to individuals to help them stay where they are,
this
so
is
that
a
they
Steven question.
Right,
This is a Steven, just because you're talking about relapses so many times, right? Like this is that, right? Like how did you keep coming back, and how do you help other people handle those things?
I don't, I've been thinking about this even before I was asked to do this talk, like a lot these past couple of weeks. Like, why did I keep trying? Because there was no conscious thing like, oh, I'm gonna fucking get this thing. I think it was just like, I don't know. Looking back now, it's like I really had more reasons like why I was like getting real close to or attuned to like why I was making these changes or why I wanted to make this change, right? For my recovery, it's like, man, I just wanted to stop hurting. Like the pain of my using started to outweigh the pain of that I was trying to cover up with my using, right? Yeah. And it's like, so like eventually I was like, okay, well, like why do I want to do this? And like it got stronger, right? So I think like if we do falter with anything, like getting back in touch with like, why was I on this path in the first place? Like what was my main motive, or what were the motivating factors? Was it family? Was it my self-confidence? Was it a physical thing? Was it an internal thing? And like I have a ton of reasons why. Like I wanted to get sober again or try one more time. Like I had a kid and I had like a girlfriend and family, and even with messing up with fitness before, it's like, well, I just want to feel healthy and strong again. And so I think like the biggest thing I can tell people is like, don't shame yourself. Because like we're human, we're gonna mess up and like fail at anything we're trying to do. Like if we did it perfectly, like, I mean, I guess that'd be cool. But in my mind, it's like, I'm not gonna learn anything. If I hadn't had so many relapses, I wouldn't have all this experience of like what not to do in my recovery. Like it's given me, it's given me a wealth of knowledge. Same thing with like fitness, nutrition, family, relationships. Like I haven't done any of that perfectly, especially sober. But I realize that like I mess up a lot. And I have the opportunity to like be like, man, I'm a fucking loser. I don't know anything. Or be like, okay, well, like how can I like change my perspective on like what this is? I think somebody said it really good to me the other day. Like if I can apply meaning to whatever happened, then it gives me a reason to like use it as like some growth, like a growth factor, right? My relapses all happened so that I could learn all this stuff for what not to do when I finally had long-term recovery. And say,
so like shifting your perspective on failure.
Yeah, I mean, I think failure is like, I just heard like a great Denzel Washington video quote about it the other day. Like he was like, if you don't fail, you're not doing it right. And I know that's probably a different perspective with recovery, but like I think it's common that we all fail. I know like maybe one person that's gotten it the first time. And so I think like really looking at like, okay, I did fail. Like how can I use this to my benefit? Like how can I give this meaning in my life and learn from it? And it's again, sounds easier said than done, but that is my perspective on it, now.
I think shaping the definition of failure is important, right? Because a lot of people want to look at, the treatment journey and insert opportunities of going to treatment and, actually taking advantage of, going to detox and in residential, blah blah blah, as that's my chance. That was the only chance that I've ever had. And I failed at it, and I didn't do well. Or even more so, kind of like you were saying, like somebody went through it the first time. But I think that the definition, like a lot of people put, there's three things or two things that I love what you said. Like one is like shame can be that bear that will just rip you to shreds, and it will live inside you, and it will come out at the first opportunity when you start feeling happy and proud of yourself for anything. And so, I think identifying shame and identifying the things that bring you shame and using it to your benefit is one of the best pieces of advice and things that you've brought that I've heard you say today, and thank you for that, because that was very powerful to me, because I think we all live with shame, and I think we all struggle with that, and being able to look at it in the face and be like, you know what, I'm not gonna deal with this shame, I'm gonna deal with me, is important. And then the second thing is like, some individuals, without having a definition of failure, like somebody can like look at each day that has passed that they didn't pick up the phone to call and ask for help could be considered a failure in their eyes. And even though that they may be considering that a failure in their eyes, just imagine if they took all of the opportunities that they did, like you picked up the phone, you asked for help, you got in the car, you drove there, you rode there, you sat in group. These are not failures at all. These are all huge victories. These are all daily victories that like have that are built upon, some of these decisions that were made early on. So I think that the first decision, you might have setbacks, but definitely not failures after the decision is made to get treatment.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. And thank you for that, Stephen. You've got some great. Your experience is amazing. Speaking of like, these milestones, how do you benchmark them? Like, what do you do? Like, how do you reward yourself? Like, what did you guys do once you guys like got over that hill or got over that mound or saved this much money or opened up this business or had this much time in recovery? What did you do?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I struggle with taking credit for things, right? Because, like as I said early on, a lot of the good things that have happened since I got sober. I really don't feel they were my doing. Like they just happened as a result of like doing the right thing and helping other people. But I will say this last year, I started investing last year, and I had a decent year, right? And I've learned a lot this year, and the way that I rewarded myself this year was like I'm not working right now. I took most of the month off, and I pulled some money out of my investments, and I'm just kind of living off of it for a minute, just taking some time off, reinvesting in some spiritual work, and I feel like that's rewarding for me because I get so caught up in chasing these things I think I want and all this stuff, and get so caught up in life that I forget, what's really important, and that's taking care of myself, So I think at the end of the day, for me, it's self-care, That makes sense.
That makes perfect
no.
sense. That self-care piece, like people just, it's hard. It's hard to do like self-care. Like, hey, I think Joseph mentioned earlier, like I'm gonna go out and Joseph. Actually, why don't you go? I stepped on you.
Well, I was gonna say, there's one of my favorite authors is this guy Kurt Vonnegut. He wrote Slaughterhouse-Five and a couple other. Yeah, okay. So in one of his books, Cat's Cradle, there's a made up religion on this island. And the guy who, the prophet of this religion, has these little sayings that are presented as calypsos. Too much background information, but my point is, one of the things he talks about is how, in that religion, whenever you notice something is nice, that you should stop and say out loud, well, if this isn't nice, then I don't know what is. Which in the book is kind of silly, right? But that's what Trey's talking about, right? Like, you had a good year, right? And now you're taking a pause to look around, stop and smell the roses and acknowledge, like, this was a good year. And I've been given this blessing, or this opportunity to take 2 weeks off, which, one, so many people don't have that opportunity. But two, right, we have this unhealthy mindset in the United States primarily, where it's like, if you're not grinding all the time, there's something wrong with you, right? If you have a hobby you enjoy that you haven't turned into a side hustle, there's something wrong. You know what I mean? So, like, that you've overcome that kind of, turned that voice off in your head and have had the opportunity to take advantage of it. Like, if that's not nice, then I don't know what is.
Yeah, man, I've fallen victim to that mindset for sure, and I've gotten sick. Steven one time had to kind of coach me on how to take rest days and not overtrain, because I was making myself sick. It's
so he gave you some accountability.
Yeah.
Which
accountability is huge. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that. Resolutions, we fall short. We set goals, right? We how does accountability play into this? And how do you choose who is gonna be your accountability person, right? Because I think that's part of it, right? Like, if you have a bad accountability buddy, it's not defeating the purpose. But yeah, let's talk about that. And what are y'all's thoughts on accountability and resolutions and goals?
I think it's a great idea. Whether you all both have a similar or same goal, so you're going to do those same things every day, whether it's working out, eating right, going to meetings together, or whatever, various forms of recovery and all that. I think it's important. You can hold each other accountable, but you did mention it needs to be someone that's going to hold you accountable. And so the way I look at it, with whether it's fitness or stuff, if I call Trey to 10-step, before I can even get into it, he'll be like, "Did you pray?" And if I'm like, okay, I'll call you right back. He's not gonna let me slide on just the recipe for what I need to be doing, right? He's gonna hold me accountable from the moment I call. And Trey and I joke around a lot. Yeah, more than we should. But when it comes to some serious stuff, he's gonna be like, "Hey, did you pray? Did you 1, 2, 3? Did you take these steps?" Same thing with training. Trey was my first client, and he was overtraining, so I was I didn't want to be I know how much people can fall in love with exercising and all the wellness journey, but I had to be yo, you need to take a day and rest and relax and let your body recover. So I think making sure that you have, whether it's one person or multiple people who are gonna be bluntly and clearly honest with you, whether it's hey, you need to come work out, or hey, let's go eat this meal instead, or go to this meeting, or on the flip side too, hey, you need to chill and fucking relax for a day too, when they see us getting all stressed out from all these resolutions and changes we've, that we want, but we're overdoing it, it's burning us out. Same thing, you should, I think your accountability partner or friend should be able to be hey, you need to slow your roll and take some time to decompress and not go 100 miles an hour all the time. So I think it's you want somebody who can be on both ends of the spectrum for you, and who's not gonna co-sign your bullshit. So but I just look at it someone who's not gonna lie to me, and but someone who's also still fun to be around. So
yeah. It takes a village. It takes a village. I've never met anyone that was I got sober on my own. I didn't have any help.
Yeah. All me.
Yeah, it was all me. I did this. When So while it's never an individual thing. There is an individual component, and that's empowering yourself in your recovery resolution, right? You've made the decision, right? So we've got listeners, we've got people who are going to be listening to this, and we got people who are actively listening, and we have people that are going to say, go back and say, oh, I was listening to this, this webcast, and these guys were talking about resolutions and how to make blah blah blah. And so, so we've got a few, we've got the ingredients, right? We've got our flour measured out. We know that we've got to break this down into small, achievable goals. We gotta be realistic that sometimes we're not always going to hit that goal, but when we do, we have to stay anchored in both reality and our own resolution that we can still achieve our goal. And in addition to that, is making sure that we, find time to reward ourselves and do things for ourselves and celebrate the small wins each month and as we go along through this. We also know that one of the important things is to reach out for help and seek help from those who can assist and give you and be there for you. The last part of this is empowering yourself and what are you doing, and what do you do to keep yourself going every day so we talked about the anchor, but what about the wind in your sails? Stephen, what's the wind in your sails? What's the thing that keeps you going, that keeps you moving, and what would you tell someone who's looking to get some wind put in their sails so that they can start their journey to recovery?
I think you and then Trey have both mentioned it. Don't sell myself short on the small things. I try to give myself where credit is due. I know definitely both of that program was very spiritual, and I have a lot of help. Not just me higher power wise, fellowship wise, but also I do acknowledge man, I did show up and make the choice to do this stuff today, or for the last 23 months, and I really didn't have to. I didn't for 10 years before, and so I do and this has been a very hard process for me. I'm definitely more confident in it now, but just being yeah, I did that. Maybe I wasn't just me that kept me sober for 23 months, but I had a part, and so I need to acknowledge man, I did show up. Did I show up great every day, and did I go to a meeting every day for the last 23 months? No, but I did get my self to this point with with the action that I decided to take every day, and did I have help? Yes, but there is also a point anybody showing up or making changes, you have to give yourself credit for it. If you show up to detox, you were willing to show up to detox, and maybe if someone dropped you off, if you really wanted to, you could just run away, right? Whatever. We have to give ourselves credit for what we're, the willingness we did have, and maybe we don't even know in the moment how much it is, but look back on when I'm leaving treatment, I'm man, I did show up to detox, and I did stay, and I did really want to fucking leave. I didn't want to be in treatment for the 10th time, right? But I did stay and had a good experience, and I should be able to give myself credit for that. And there are it's a culmination of things outside of myself and people that are helping me, but it's also I am a factor in my own recovery. So and the own changes I make in my life. So I think people congratulating themselves should be a big part of it. And as far as for what I do today, I look back and be damn, I did do that. I've never been sober this long. So I continuously am man, I'm doing good. Am I where I want to be at, for totality of my life? No, but I'm doing a lot better than I was a few years ago. So I am very proud of that fact.
Right. What about you, Trey?
Man, I think what keeps me going is my own experience in recovery, man. The truth is life sucks sometimes, right? I can only see right now, and right now sometimes it sucks, but when I look back on my life, especially the last 6 years, the those times that I was sitting in treatment or was going through a breakup, whatever the case was, those were the times of the most profound change in my life, like just incredible transformation. So like I try and keep close to the idea that like regardless of what's happening in the present moment, there's some cool shit happening, you know, and embracing the idea that like, you know, maybe I'm supposed to be going through this, you know. A good example for me is like relationships and recovery, right? Looking back on these relationships that didn't work out, it sucked. It sucked when I was going through it, right? But looking back, I was learning what works and what I valued in other people, and ultimately, you know, I can say today, like, man, I'm in the best relationship of my life. It's incredible. It's work. It sucks sometimes. You know, we argue, but ultimately, man, it's a cool process. So, yeah, that's all.
Right on.
All right. Cool. What about you, Joseph?
Oh. I didn't know you were gonna do that to me, man.
Well, you know, we're coming up on the hour and we've got to wrap it up, but you know, this is probably the most important part, right? This is the thing that, like,
how do you keep
I tell you what, I'll
going?
give you a moment to think.
No, I
and
got
I'll
it.
tell you what Okay, go.
So, you know, the one thing. So, like, for me, like my recovery today, like even though like I'm trying to grow in all these different areas, right? Like the basics are still the basics, right? Like, someone told me a long time, like you never go to like advanced AA, right? Like it's just AA, and you know. The one practice that I've been the most consistent on, you know, because like prayer meditation, I go up and down, like fitness, I go up and down, all that kind of stuff. But gratitude, you know, like, and the way I do it is I think about where I was on July 20th, 2008, you know, dope sick, you know, with a dull needle stabbing myself in the leg with a safety pin so I could get the rig into my leg to, you know, like, at the bathroom in a Circle K in Laredo. You know, like I remember, like I think about like those low points, and then I think about what I'm grateful for today, right? And at that point, man, I'm grateful that there's a roof. I'm grateful that I'm wearing clothes that don't smell bad. You know, I'm grateful, you know, and having that gratitude to where I am from where I was is like, okay, we got to keep this going. You know what I mean? And it makes, for me, right, like those small inconveniences, right? Like it makes them so much easier to take. You know, it turns them from speed bumps into like those little speed humps that you can just kind of haul ass over, right? Because like I know that I got high class problems today, you know. And that, you know, I'd like to keep it that way. That's pretty motivating for me. The other big one is just obviously like my family, right? Like, you know, if I falter, I'm not the only person impacted by that, you know, and it doesn't just have to be like relapse, right? Like if I let my mental health slip, if I let my spirituality slip, like they're the first people to bear the brunt of it, you know. Daddy didn't meditate this morning, so he's in a shitty mood. That means the kids are getting yelled at, you know, for no reason, or maybe a little bit of a reason, but you know what I mean. Like, and so it, you know, it's the thing with the airplane, right? Like putting my oxygen mask on first before giving them theirs. That those are two huge motivators for me, right? It's just, you know, keeping my family safe and staying in gratitude.
Oh, yeah.
Good. Well, so what we do at the end of each, you know, at the end of each show is that we give one of our guests the last words. And Stephen, I'm going to give you the last words, and the question, the topic rather, that I want you to speak on as the last words as we sign off for this evening are, someone is listening right now and they've heard everything that we've had to say about, how to create goals, how to maintain goals, how to achieve goals, and how to keep their goals going. But one of the things that they haven't heard about is what do you do once you've gotten there? What do you do where you are? You've made the goal, you've gotten there. What's next? What happens after you hit that goal? What's the next goal that you make after you hit your sobriety? What's the next goal that you make after you after you get a business? What's the next goal you make after you've saved up enough money? What do you do next? How do you maintain and manage the next goal after that?
I mean, my experience, and I'll give a few quick examples. I'll set a new one. I love milestones and 12-step because there is something tangible that I'm going for. Maybe it's just a chip, but it's that number changes and it goes up, and I get to be more proud every day and every 6 months or a year that I'm gaining this much more recovery and sobriety, right? If it's with working out, if I bench press X amount of weight, then I just shoot for more. But I also think that a good goal is and I try to give this to clients, especially in parallel to 12-step, if I've achieved some goal, then I probably gained some sort of some level of knowledge along that path. And then one of my goals should be to share that with people who are willing to listen and benefit from it, whether it's recovery or how I changed my wellness and health and diet and all that. I think a huge goal is how can I share this with other people who are interested, and how can I not just hoard all this knowledge and good stuff, right? I should be man, there are other people who I know who have asked me how to do this, or who are talking about it on the internet and or in rooms, whatever, I think we should just try to find out how I can share this with other people and help them in their own lives, because somebody did it for me. And it's the same thing with 12-step. I look at a lot of other avenues of growth and change in our lives the same way. We should just figure out how we can share that and help somebody else with it.
Wow, that is powerful, and that is true. The meaning of life is that it's meant to be shared. So same thing.
Did you read that on a dish towel?
No,
It
it was in a fortune cookie when I was 8. No,
it was fire.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
No, that's honestly what I believe, is that the meaning of life is that it's meant to be shared. Don't keep it to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you guys for taking your time out. Joseph, do you have anything?
I just wanted to give Stephen and Trey a real quick opportunity to shout out their socials or how to get in touch with them for Legends in Life Wellness. Just where can people find you if they liked what you guys were talking about tonight? If y'all want to just do a quick little shout out for yourselves before we wrap it up.
Yeah, so our website is I'mALivingLegend.com. And then Stephen, what's the Instagram handle?
The Instagram handle is @ or whatever. It's Legends Life _wellness. And then my other thing before the Dawn Strength is on there too, but you can find both of us in our personal pages on @Legends Life _wellness.
Cool. Just want to give you all that opportunity real quick, because y'all taking the time out of your day.
Oh, of course.
And call these guys if you guys are making a resolution. If you guys are changing anything, if you guys are making the decision to get healthy or to get sober, call us if you want to get sober, call them if you want to get healthy, or vice versa.
Just call somebody. If you're alone and it's gonna be your first New Year's Eve sober tomorrow, or it's gonna be your last New Year's Eve, getting fucked up, call somebody. Call somebody to celebrate, or call somebody for support, or call somebody for help.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you all. If you guys need anything, reach out to us, Recovery Unplugged or Legends of Life and Wellness.
Awesome, man. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you guys.
You're welcome. Peace out, guys.
Bye.